Good evening, everyone. We are back for another episode of Ghost Education 101. And again, I love that intro. Thank you, Philip, for making that.
I love doing those things.
They get better and better every year.
I scream most of the time because my computer will crash while I'm making them, but it's worth the effort.
That's why I let you do it, so mine doesn't crash. And today we are joined by Matthew Jackson from Paraholics. So
Yay.
welcome and thank you for joining us today.
My pleasure, man. Thank you so much for having me on, you two.
Yeah, super excited. And if anyone has any questions along the way, feel free to ask. I know Philip probably has a whole bunch of questions.
Me? Never.
Oh no, this guy knows me too well. End of interview again.
Well,
he
first
comes
off,
more prepared than I do.
I know I messaged her 30 minutes ago. Do you have any talking points lined up for tonight? As I'm eating my Easter ham for dinner. Well, if you don't know Matthew, I have to tell everybody he is one of the, if not the most generous, nicest people in the paranormal community you could ever want to have as a friend. So I love you. You know it.
Hey, man. Feelings mutual, my friend. Absolutely. Thanks for the kind words.
It's all true. Love you to death.
Hey, thank you.
So, Heather, do you have anything you want to start with, or?
Basically, for those who don't know him, if you can just introduce yourself and kind of maybe share what got you into the paranormal, because we all have that one story that sparked our interest.
Yeah, I was real resistant to being interested or involved in the paranormal. A lot of that had to do with the way that I was raised, brought up to think that anything you could not explain that was strange was probably the devil or evil or something like that. So the paranormal was not on my docket. Even though I grew up, I love weird things. I love monsters and horror movies and all that stuff. I was definitely down for it. But as far as like entertaining the thought of like ghosts being real and hauntings, just really wasn't my thing until when I was at some point in my early to mid 20s. I was working in a location, historic building, and one night myself and the owner, it was a hair salon. The owner and I, we actually saw a hand mirror get tossed like a frisbee off of one of the stylist stations. Got tossed like a frisbee. Yeah, and there was nobody in the building except for her and I and our two final guests of the evening. And we were actually at the front of the building, like checking them out. And neither one of us worked in the station where the mirror was. So it had been, no one had been there for quite some time. And to look up and all of a sudden see this thing get tossed and for it to rotate and hit the ground and the glass broke.
It did break.
Yeah. We all just like stopped. We were froze and just looking. I mean, it was a very confusing moment. It was more confusing than it was scary until I walked over to investigate it. And I just, for the life of me, could not see how it would have fallen off this cabinet and landed where it did and go through the air like it did. I mean, it was just really, I was flabbergasted. Can I say it? And so anyway, the lady that owned the salon, basically said, well, anyone that's worked here for a period of time thinks that this place is haunted. And I was like, no kidding, haunted, huh? And I just kind of put it out of my head because I didn't want to entertain the thought. And it was a few years after that, a friend of mine bought a house, and I went over to check out his house after he bought it, and he had not moved in yet, hadn't had a chance to put, any of his finishing touches or details on it. But as we were walking through the house, I started noticing there was this red film around all the windows. And like every room, I'm seeing this film. And I finally asked him, I was like, what is this around? You're going to have to paint every room because of this stuff around it. And he's like, oh, yeah, the previous owners thought the place was haunted and they had to have some sort of cleansing ritual done. And whatever they did to seal the house, of course, this is all new terms to me, to seal the house, left this residue around all the windows. And so I guess I'm going to have to repaint the place. And so I thought, it was humorous. He thought it was humorous until like 6 months later, he's like, by the way, my house is haunted.
This stuff didn't work, whatever it is around the windows.
Yeah, and which was really funny to me because this was like the one guy, you know, everyone has that one friend that's like adult ADD, and he just kind of bounces all over the place. Yeah, and for him to tell me the place was haunted, I found it, you know, pretty humorous. And I kind of put the mirror thing out of my mind, so I wasn't, like I said, I was back to not even considering these things. And it was one night, and I'll never forget. It was summer of 2003. He invited me over, and we were hanging out on his back deck, and sure enough, something whispered in my ear and like kicked up this glass of water. I was drinking water, so I wasn't hallucinating or anything. And this water like splashed all over me, and I basically, I don't know, are you allowed to cuss on this show? I basically yelled something really cool because I was so startled.
I never have.
and he was sitting across the deck from me, and he never even looked up. He just said, "Oh, that's the ghost." Stuff like that happens all the time. And I got the heck out of there. It freaked me out. And after that, I started asking him more questions and finding out things that were actually happening in this house to the guy. And come to find out the history of the home, that somebody was murdered there.
Ooh,
back in 1970. And not only was someone murdered there, the guy who committed the murder was a personal friend of my grandfather's. So it brought in like this family connection to the history of the place, and it just got me interested. Like, if this stuff is real, you know, what makes a ghost? I mean, how does this all work? So I started doing something really strange. I started reading books. Yeah, on the subject. Yeah, and by this point, I was still a few years out before the paranormal TV shows really started to roll out, and I was really surprised that there was like a methodology that people would do to go out into these locations and explore. And so I'm super curious when something, you know, gets in front of my face. I just have to, you know, dig into it. And of course, you know, as you guys know, you've been around the paranormal long enough. Just when you think you have something figured out, you find out you don't, you know, nothing. So I'm like, you know, so many years, I'm like 12 years in on this. And I think I'm, you know, I know less now than what I think I knew back in, you know, 2006 or 8 when I first started investigating. So it's been a very interesting ride. And it's something that, you know, because I can't get satiated on this, and I can't figure anything out, I just keep looking and poking and prodding and exploring. So it's a really exciting thing to be involved in and get to network and meet cool people, have fun conversations, and you find that there are other weirdos out there, and you're like, hey guys.
God, we have our tribe.
Yeah.
And real quick before Philip continues with his questions, Joanne has us covered with the swearing.
Hey, thank you. I needed it. It's so at some point I decided to start. I like to write. I do enjoy the writing process, and I felt like, you know, if I'm going to grow and discover anything through this, I needed to find a way to document it. So that's when I started the Paraholics blog. And so yeah, I've been, you know, researching, writing, going to locations, and you know, playing with all this stuff ever since. So it's kind of how it all started to unfold for me.
Now, where do you live? Tell everyone that may not know, what part of the country are you in?
I live in central Indiana. Yeah. I mean, there's more than corn here. There's actually a few hills, and I actually live in the hills of Indiana in a log cabin in the woods. So
sounds really nice right now. A log cabin.
Outside of the cold weather.
Not like in the horror movies, that kind of log cabin, but
well, some of the stuff I have around my house, you know, including like a human skeleton and so forth, you know.
I remember when you got that, and you had part of it in your son's room, and he didn't even know you had it. Like,
he didn't know it was in there. And he was the guy that, like, you better not bring that home. I'm like, okay.
Sure. That was funny. That was very funny. Are your kids, you have 2?
I do.
Are they interested in it at all?
My daughter would be sitting right here at all times, doing all this stuff with me if she could. And my son is he's an observer, and he's very skeptical. I mean, he's got a very scientific mind.
Oh,
And
that's good. We like that.
yeah, and he's not closed-minded though, and he admits, like, when I hear something in like one of my sessions, and of course, my wife or someone else tries to like make fun of it, he'll be like, no, that's what it says.
Yeah.
It's like, you cannot deny that's what it says.
That's what it
So
says. What about your wife? You have a beautiful wife. Does she go with you to any investigations, or is she like, honey, that's your thing, I'm staying home?
she's pretty happy letting me just do my thing. She really made fun of all this at one point until I did take her to Waverly Hills.
Oh, wow. That's an introduction.
Yeah, and we both had a shared experience that pretty well kind of shut her down as far as like, belittling this obsession of mine. And it's funny how she conveniently likes to forget about that night at Waverly until I bring it up, and then she wants to just change the subject. So we saw like this 3-4 foot tall bipedal shadow figure. It looked like a kid or an alien gray, depending on what you were focused on, and it ran across the hall right in front of us, completely silent and kind of misty. And it's one of those things that I swear, if I was looking through a blue screen of a camera, I never would have saw. But we both saw it, and of course she already thinks I'm insane, so I didn't say anything right away. And she I eventually said, hey, did you see anything? And she's like, what was that? And she goes through and talks about, what was that? She's so freaked out. And I'm like, well, let's see, it was not a possum. It was not a raccoon. I mean, what it was, I have no idea, but it was very weird. I mean, one of the rare like visual things that you actually get to experience, and so pretty special in that regard.
But usually when something like that happens, a switch flips and they're addicted, but that didn't happen to her. I guess she was like,
no, it's time to shut that down.
Yeah,
take me home, put me back in the woods.
It's like the time I took a date on an investigation, and I got the spirit box to say his name, and he left and went and got in the car. It was like, yeah, I told you it was real.
yeah, exactly.
That was great. Yeah, I got to weed out the wimps. That'll do it.
Yeah.
So, now, yeah, because on your bio, you didn't really have a paranormal experience as a kid, like a lot of people. You just said, what happens after we die? That was just a question that you had, something you'd always thought, like, what happens after this?
Yeah, I think everybody wonders that, and or hopes, or, most people have some sort of hope that they hold out for, after we do expire, and it's kind of a dismal thought to think that this is it, and how much of that is just our ego, having wishful thinking versus, some evidence that points towards something else that, we can look forward to or be fearful of,
Yeah. You mentioned your upbringing. Was it a religious?
Yeah.
So you're going to hell. Yeah. Like I was. Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah, and there are a lot of organizations that have that perspective, and it's just like anything spiritual has to be funneled through their approved avenue, or it's the devil, it's evil, it's this or that. So and I've had so many experiences that don't fit into that definition. So yeah.
A lot of young people in that situation have been through that, and they know what they're being taught is not what's real for them because of what they're experiencing. And it's hard. I was there as a kid too. So
I think there's a side of me too that it's like, the first time I went into a supposed haunted theater, And, this is a theater that had no recorded deaths that happened in it. Of course, we always wonder, well, why would a place be haunted if nobody died here? And we all have our various opinions on how that might work. And, it made me reflect about like the way that I was raised, and everything that you experience, it's unexplainable, is demonic on some level. And I started thinking, how low down the ladder of the chain of command in the demon world would you have to be to go sit in an empty theater
Yeah, exactly.
for all eternity, just hoping some loser like me would come by and maybe you can scare the bejesus out of me, and it's just like, how weird is that to think about? And then there's the extremely cynical, my sense of humor, my sarcastic sense of humor. It's like, well, if this is all demonic and the only thing that we're doing is being duped and influenced by fallen angels, you mean to tell me an angel fell from heaven and he wants to talk to me?
Exactly.
That's
the first time I heard
pretty amazing.
Satan, I was like, oh my God, I'm so honored. I mean, you want to talk to me? Really?
Yeah. I mean, not a lot of people can brag and say that,
Right. So
Yeah.
funny. Yeah. When it came across, I'm Satan on the spirit box, I said, oh, hi, Satan. I'm Elvis. Nice to meet you. I never heard it again after that. But you're a great story writer. I know you like to write. You also write poetry, in case people don't know about that. But
yeah,
if you're watching and you haven't watched any of Matt's videos, oh my gosh, there's such great stories. The way you put them together, you're very talented with that.
Hey, thank you. It's so hard when you're trying to be as genuine as you can, and you're trying to present everything as fair and as transparent as possible. And you also, you want people to enjoy what you do, but at the same time, I mean, you've known me long enough. I'm not the type of guy to get on camera and be like, hey guys, and try to be like a paranormal YouTuber entertainer. That's just not my thing. I at least try to present, the actual events as they happen, and I try to be as transparent as I can with the boxes that I use, and the recorders, EVPs. I try to do really good work, and I try to present it in a way.
It's obvious.
Yeah. Well, and I try to make it interesting. I always imagine, someone who's not very experienced, if they come across any of my, my videos, how it might look to them versus, someone like you two who had tons of experience. I try to put some nuggets in there too that makes everybody think. And so, yeah, I really do things the hard way. I really think about all these things a lot. So, I work hard at it.
The effort shows. They're really nice. They're really nice.
Thank you.
Even on your website, your opening video of you in the truck, and I was like, oh my God, this is just like a movie. It's really cool with the music, and it's like this is like top notch videoing here.
Hey, and I got permission to use that song too. I didn't steal it, so props to me.
Yeah, it's really nice.
We do have a few quick questions real quick. Not to interrupt you, but before they get lost in the feed, how did you come up with the name Paraholics? Linda says it's an interesting name, and I'm curious.
Oh my gosh. It's kind of an embarrassing story, but I really don't like the name.
Oh my gosh.
When
exactly what it is when you hear it, it's like,
yeah. Well, I started when I first started investigating with a team out of Indianapolis. Social media and everything was pretty young, and we had a different name that we called our little team and so forth. And anyway, we were pretty funny guys. We like to joke and have fun and everything. And we started talking about all the different potentials you could have out there for paranormal TV shows. And we were like, wouldn't it be funny if there was a show where just a bunch of paranormal investigators got crazy drunk and went in to do an investigation? I mean, it really is this.
That's like Drunk History, that TV show. Oh my God.
Exactly. That was about the time I think Drunk History was on. And so it was just something that was funny. So to be funny, I surprised the guys. I started a Twitter account, and I used the name that we jokingly came up with for our drunk ghost hunting team. And I came up with this nickname for my character on this show named Evil Ogleville. And Evil Ogleville,
my notes here. Yeah.
He would get on his moped at night and grab a case of beer and head out on location. And I had a whole, background story for this guy, and it was just a joke amongst all of us. Well, as time progressed and we kind of drifted away, I wanted to go ahead and go forward with my own personal look into the paranormal. And I already, at that point, man, I had all this Paraholics stuff reserved on social media. And even though it all said Evil Ogleville, just one day, it's like I flipped a switch, like, you know what? I'm just going to take this and ride it out and turn it into something legitimate versus just comedy, because I used to put just ridiculously funny tweets out there, man, about my Aunt Patty, who, even though I never found a Sasquatch, she's hairy enough to be, it was just all buffoonery, right? And so, I just went with it. And so hopefully nobody goes back very far on my Twitter feed.
All right, now I'm going to have to get on Twitter.
Yeah. So that's how it all started.
And where on YouTube can they find you?
It's Paraholics, on YouTube.
Okay.
Yep.
And then Kelly, one more question. She wants to know what's your most scary experience and what was your most positive experience?
I work with Kelly. She's on my team. She's great lady.
Oh. Yeah, I think she just we just connected recently on Facebook. Yeah, my most scary experience. Well, I'm not one to play into like the demonic all that much, but there's one place that's actually here in Indiana that they call the Demon House. It's the Monroe House in Hartford. Hartford City. It's been on TV a few times, and usually a location that gets blown up on the television shows. I really tried to, I don't give them a lot of credit, usually, and I don't try to hype them up or buy into it. And some friends of mine rented the place, and they invited me to come up and check it out. And so I went up there with absolutely no expectation, and it wound up being one of the wildest experiences I've ever had in any location. We did some experiments with like infrasound, and we were just playing around with doing different things. And the place just had
generator for that.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. I want to ask you about that later. What sound generator you use?
George Brown, that actually makes the Geobox. He was there that night, and he's the one who created like this big. It was huge. I mean, it shook the whole house. This huge infrasound generator. So it was something custom that he made. So yeah.
Well,
I don't know what frequencies he was using or anything like that. Yeah. And so anyway, we were in this one room, and I was off in the corner holding the camera. I was the camera guy that night, and there was a group of like 6 or 8 investigators in the middle of the room, all doing like an EVP session. And the only thing I can liken it to is like a shark circling a school of fish. All the investigators were the fish, and there was a shark in there that nobody could see. He made his presence known, or they did, or whatever. And I systematically saw each person get picked off one by one with scratches, burns, or they got physically ill and had to step outside the house. And I was the only one that was like unscathed in all this. And it's almost like it knew it needed me to run the camera to document it, and it was just bizarre. I mean, one by one, they just started like disappearing and yelling, and it was wild. So, but it was so crazy in that moment. Even then, I don't know how fearful I was versus just so confused. Like, this is really happening, it just really caught me off guard. But that was definitely super intense.
Did you get any EVPs? Could you pull out what this may have been? A person, a non-person, or any clue?
Well, the team that invited me up there, they're the ones who had all the footage everything. I just brought. I know I did catch some EVPs. I definitely caught my buddy Anthony. The burn on the back of his neck. I did document a few of those items that are on my my Monroe House video on my website. But the main team at that time, they were called Darkness Paranormal, and they got all the video of all that, and I never have been able to review that footage. So I've asked for it, but I've never been able to see it. Yeah.
Yes.
I think they had some technical issues with maybe the video, and so it never surfaced, unfortunately.
We know the spirits can mess with those things, so they always mess with my body camera. It's so bizarre. It's always my body camera they mess with.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, we were at the Lotes house a couple months ago, and every bit of footage outside of the Lotes house, out on the battlefields, walking around, perfect. Everything inside at the nighttime investigation disappeared off my body camera.
Wow. Strange.
Yeah.
Positive experience she asked about. I had the opportunity to go to a famous haunted train tunnel in the state of Indiana, and every state has that top 10 list of most haunted locations, and if I get a chance to check one of those out, I will always try my best to. And I went to this train tunnel, and I caught some EVPs in it, and including a guy's name named Henry. And Henry turned out to be a murder victim back in the late 1800s. And for the next 3 years, Henry kept coming through my ITC devices.
Where you were?
What's that?
No matter where you were?
No matter where I was, no matter what device I was using, nothing. And it was actually kind of annoying because I couldn't figure it out, right? Because I wasn't listening to Henry, and Henry would come through, and I'd ask for a name. It'd be a state away, and Henry Dixon would come through. And
Mr. Matthew.
What's that?
You like Mr. Matthew?
Yeah, and I would ask Henry, like, where did we meet? And he'd say the big tunnel, and it was just it was really wild. And so the summer of COVID, I happened to have a little sweet Frank's box with me that I know that you're familiar with. And I was playing with it in my backyard. And, I was just listening to it. And next thing you know, I started to recognize that somebody was trying to get my attention. I'm like, who's talking to me? And it was Henry. And it's like, I'm going to try my best to have a conversation with this guy just to see if is he with me? Is he just tuning into me, or what is the deal? And I finally got the message, take me to her. And I really thought, what could that mean? And I came up with the idea, maybe his wife. And I found out that Henry was married. He had a couple kids. And it turns out that Henry was actually buried in the same cemetery as his wife. And so I just got the idea that maybe I should take Henry, go there, see if that's what he means. So I drove out to this cemetery one day. My wife was like, "Where are you going?" I'm like, "Don't want to talk about it. I'll catch you later." and so I drove out to the cemetery, and it was really strange because it was this cemetery, a very old cemetery on this hilltop with this, this picturesque chapel on top of it. As a matter of fact, it was called the Dixon Chapel because his entire family is buried there. And you know how those old cemeteries can be with the very tall obelisk shaped tombstones. I got out of my Jeep and I walked straight to his grave in the middle of that cemetery. I just knew where it was. It was the weirdest thing. And I don't feel like I'm, psychic or anything like that, but I walked straight to his tombstone and I started crying. I mean, I just could not figure out how any of this happened and how I would know exactly where the guy was buried. Walked straight to it, and I sat there for a while, and then I went and I got one of my ghost boxes and turned it on, and I was thanked by a male voice, I was thanked by a female voice, and I was told to never come back. And I've not heard from Henry Dixon since. So
just couldn't find her.
Yeah,
maybe it was the past life situation. He was connected to you in that way somehow, maybe.
When I found out he was Knights of Pythias member, which is where I got that skeleton from. Of course, then everybody started teasing me. Oh, you got this skeleton of Henry Dixon in your house.
I want my head back.
So yeah, that was definitely one of the more interesting moments that I've had. And of course, you know, I've never been one to really subscribe to like crossing spirits over or rescuing spirits and so forth. And then I had that moment, and I'm like, did I just help a ghost?
Yes,
And yeah, and it kind of just rocked me back on my heels once again, kind of resetting what I thought that I know and what I thought that I felt about all of this. And so yeah, you know, every day it's a new learning curve, and the goalpost keeps moving.
it does. Further and further away.
Yeah.
Heather.
Oh, sorry. I'm replying to messages that are coming through like crazy. Okay. What location has been your absolute favorite to investigate?
My absolute favorite. There's a really weird cemetery not too far from here that I really like to go to, because you know, if there is an Area 51 in the state of Indiana, this place seems to be kind of the hot spot for you know, ghost hauntings, cryptids, UFO sightings.
Oh, wow.
You know, Bigfoot's made some appearances in the middle of a forestry where, oh, by the way, a religious cult used to meet and handle snakes and perform weird rituals. So that's kind of, what's that?
Sacrifice children. Yeah.
Oh yeah, you know, the light stuff. And so that's kind of one of my favorite places to investigate, because the history is just so fascinating, and you know, out in the woods in Indiana. Yeah. You know, I've been to Lizzie Borden bed and breakfast. That was really fascinating. I've been to Waverly Hills one too many times. I don't know if I have an all-time favorite though. I have to really think about that.
Did you get much activity at Lizzie Borden house?
You know,
mixed there. Like either you get stuff or you just get nothing.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because my brother and I, we went to Boston for a wedding, and we like disappeared from the family so we could sneak away to Lizzie's house and hang out there for the night. And that was kind of I just started experimenting with ITC outside of like just regular EVP work. Too many letters in this hobby, man. We change it up. And so I still was kind of undecided at that point how I really felt about ghost boxes.
Yeah.
And so here we are in the Lizzie Borden house, and we're downstairs, and it's really late. And my brother and I, we broke out like this PSB 7 that I packed with me on the plane just to kind of play with. But, you know, I hung a bell up. I did all these things around the house. So we're sitting in the room where Andrew Borden got hacked to death. And, you know, we're just asking questions. The next thing you know, it starts saying Lizzie. And it started saying Lizzie like over and over again.
Oh, wow.
And I was shocked. And then we started hearing footsteps in the house that were like near us. And, you know, there were guests there, but they were all upstairs. There was nobody on the ground level. And so that was kind of my first experience of, you know, not only hearing something through an ITC device, but kind of having a cooperative experience to validate what I was hearing through the device as well. And, you know, that's a lot of what I've been like, I'm preparing for the Haunted America conference, is talking about, you know, the proper time and usage of these devices, because, you know, I think a lot of people, you know, if they get in, especially in a residential case, you know, as an ITC experimenter, I think like all bets are off. You do just what you want to do, and you got your own little thing. But when you're dealing with a residential case and you go to break out a spirit box, you know, from like my experience, and you're trying to prove or disprove whether this person's house is haunted, you know, you need to be really careful, because if you've set out like all your meters and you've done your baseline and you're doing your EVP session, and I think there's a lot of situations where we get into where we want our perception and our intentions kind of get wrapped up in the moment. And maybe we all want a place to be haunted. Let's face it. I mean, you know, you don't want a place not to be haunted, you know? And so you're not getting any meter chirps, you're not getting any EMF, you're not getting any responses through EVP. But guess what? You turn on a spirit box, you're going to hear something.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, and so it's being cautious when you're in those moments, especially when you're dealing with a residential case, to not be disingenuous and to, even if it's inadvertently falsify some sort of, audio snippet, it's really hard to base that to prove the haunting for the homeowner. So just having that moment in the Lizzie Borden home with the steps in the house and all the things that we kind of felt kind of made that the spirit box saying Lizzie a few times really profound, so it was a very, very cool experience. And so that's when I kind of got a little obsessed with spirit boxes and ITC work, and just went down the rabbit hole ever since, and since experimenting with those devices. So
are you in your office with your spirit boxes?
Yeah, I'm down in my bunker.
Is that what's on the wall next to you?
Which way? Here?
I know there's one wall with a ton of your spirit boxes on it. Are you in that room?
Yeah, I'm in that room.
Oh, I wish you could give everybody a glimpse of.
Well, I have all the lights off. Well, I have like a whole stack of Pelican cases right now that's built up like a wall. The only one I really have handy here is actually the box I've been using for the slaughter sessions that I've been posting about and writing on my blog. So this is a ghost box that was built.
That, baby.
Yeah, it was built in an old Brownie camera, and we've been calling it the Brownie projector box. And so it's a ghost box.
Yeah.
And on the inside of it, there is the LED lights that pulse off of the sweep circuit. That there's a crystal in front of that, and then two magnifying. I believe so.
Yeah,
I believe so. And so the light from the LED lights shine through the crystal, then go through two different magnifying lenses to make the light project. So it's kind of a fun experiment that the guy who built this for me, his name's Austin Maynard, just a way to incorporate maybe a little bit of like visual video type ITC just to throw in to see if, something might show itself. So this has been a sweet little box. It has a really, really good sound to it. So I've been sitting down here.
Reverb and all the other things, the noise reduction.
No noise reduction, but there is reverb and some echo and delay feedback, things like that. So
very sweet.
Yeah, it's a fun little box, and Austin's pretty creative. He's coming up with some clever builds. So I felt pretty fortunate to get a hold of this one, and not all my boxes will work down here because I'm actually in the basement of my house.
Yeah.
So if I can get any type of communication down here, it's not easy, and sometimes depending on the time of year, it's just radio silence, literally. So that's what I've been doing the slaughter sessions with.
Now let's. Okay, so do you have video using this box on your website or YouTube?
The first two slaughter sessions are posted, and so both of those videos we're doing the slaughter sessions in like series. And so the first series we're calling the Skinwalker series, and it's all based on Skinwalker Ranch. So and probably the next series, whatever that might be, I'll try a different box. So we'll play around with that.
Do you think your boxes each have different personalities? I know mine do.
Yeah, I do.
One that'll cuss no matter what you turn it on. It cusses.
Yeah,
it's a shack hack, and it'll cuss you into the floor. And then
that's hilarious.
Yeah, I love it. Now the Shadow in the Static Project, is that Slaughter?
That's the Slaughter series.
Can you start from like the beginning of what that is, and so everybody will know?
Yeah. So April Slaughter is an ITC researcher and author. And she also is one of the few people that are privileged enough to have access to Skinwalker Ranch out in Utah.
Is she
She's
on the documentary, that the series, or is she?
uh, n- there's some things that I know that I can't say, and there's some
Okay.
things that I don't know, and I don't want to speak out of turn.
Or
So
you can
I'll just
say after we turn off the stream.
yeah, plug your ears, everybody. I do know that she knows a lot of people
Yeah.
at the ranch and involved
Okay.
in the ranch,
I just
and
finished watching that last weekend.
yeah. So she is friends with the caretakers out there, and she knows, she's met the owner. I mean, she knows a lot of people involved in the Skinwalker Ranch,
Yeah.
and so she's been out there a number of times. And she came to me with this ITC project where basically the idea is for us to do sessions that are kind of like a blind ITC study using me and my devices.
Yeah.
So she sends me questions about experiences that people have had on the ranch.
Okay.
And these are questions that I don't have the answers to.
Mm.
And so I'm just basically doing the sessions, asking her questions, documenting what I'm hearing, and I'm sending them to her. She's passing them on to other people. And I'm basically being told what I can release publicly and what I have to keep private. So those people are seeing the full uncut versions, and everyone else kind of gets just a little bit of a taste of what
Yeah.
we're working on. So
Do
it's
you
been
think
really interesting.
do you think you have your ITC team on the other side that you work with specifically? Or are you just asking for, in general, if there's any spirits out there who can help you with this project? How do you approach that when you ask the questions?
Well, that's even if you watch any of my cabin sessions, my like the weirdo edition and all that stuff, that's something that I've experimented with, because I know that some people, really believe, you're talking about your boxes having different
Yeah.
personalities. Well, some people believe that every box is tuned to a specific spirit operator or technician
Yeah.
or moderator. So that might be why you would get the various personalities depending on who that box might be connected to and whether or not that person is willing to help you or they just want to cuss at you. Like, you caught me on my coffee break, Philip. And, so
Yeah.
I am open to all that. And even a few years ago, I started, when I started really getting serious with ITC, it seemed like I got connected or contacted a lot by something calling itself Seven. And which is interesting because that is also a personality that has come through in the years of, April doing her research as well. So,
Yeah, there's somebody else I know too who was having communications with Seven. Joe, oh shoot, his name just went right out of my head.
yeah, and
It's
through
interesting.
the like 80s and 90s, I think it was it George, it was Macy, Mark Macy. Mark Macy really documented, like, through the whole like ITC bridge project, about how there was a group called the Seven that
Yeah.
helped facilitate ITC communication. And these are concepts and ideas that I'm willing to explore. It's something I'm trying to feel out and see if something comes of it. So I have asked for assistance to tune in, knock out the muck, something to kind of help facilitate more accurate information through these sessions. Because I'm not in a haunted location.
Yeah.
I'm just in my basement talking to a broken radio. And so, it's not like I feel like I'm having to deal with energies around me. And that's the crazy thing that makes them even more precarious when you're using these devices in a residential case. It's like, how do who you're talking with, and if it's anything relevant to why you're there, and or what they may pretend to be. So it's something that you have to be very, very careful about.
Yeah, I always, as a residential location, when we do a spirit box session, I say, please, if there's anyone who wants to communicate that is not located in this house or that relates to this house, please step back. Do not interfere with this session. We're here to help people. So please, back away and keep quiet. And I have my code word pickle. And I said, if you understand me and you comprehend, please say my code word. And, I get it. I'll get it several times.
Right.
Kelly, that was just on, we're doing a fundraising event at a historical place in a couple months. And we were there a couple Saturdays ago doing some preliminary work. And I had one of my portal spirit box things. And I had it in the scramble mode where all you would hear was mush. And I said that, and I said, can you please say my code word pickle for me? And it came out twice, and her husband was with us. He says, I heard that. I mean, it was great.
Yeah, that's cool.
People, you'd realize ITC wasn't originally meant for paranormal investigating. It was to communicate with your loved ones. So, yeah, we're not dealing with just a haunted location when you're talking to people through a spirit box.
Right. And then, but the advent of apps and the advent of YouTube and monetizing channels and I'm not saying anything that there's bad about that, but people that want attention will do anything to get attention. Whether
there's a difference. With no integrity, there's a difference.
Yes, yeah. And so, people that are just getting into this, even if they have good intentions, they need to be really careful of, what they look at as far as like what is ethical with integrity versus what is just, some
popularity contest.
Yeah. So
the slaughter sessions, can you give us a couple examples of questions?
I think I have my stack right here. Which ones are public? Who is with us today willing to help with this project? Something as basic as that. Yeah. And then let's see, like from the previous session, somebody said something about when I was talking about April, about April being sick and dying. And of course, obviously she's not dead and she's not ill, but still asking, are either of these things true? And of course, April growing up in the area of Utah, all her visits, how many times has like the energies of that area shown themselves to her throughout her life, or just asking the spirits if they're even aware of Skinwalker Ranch, and to even hear the word Skinwalker come through a ghost box, that's an attention getter in itself.
Absolutely.
What's that?
Have any of the questions? I don't know if you can answer this, Ben. Who mutilated the cattle? Has that been a question? Could you?
I may have touched on that a little bit. Yeah. And I can't remember. Session 2 just got posted a couple of days ago, and there might be something about that in there. I can't really remember. It was edited a few weeks ago, and between like the public and the private, so there might be something about cattle in there. I know, but it's been kind of a trip for me because this is what April's doing to me. Even after I'm doing these sessions and she gets a chance to review it and I get feedback, they're still not telling me the answers.
I know that would drive me insane.
Yeah, but
I don't know if I could do that.
For the integrity of the experiment, they feel like it's important, at least maybe until like the Skinwalker series is over, and then I'll find out. But some of the stuff that I've been told to take out, I was like, whoa, because it's like, okay, all right. And they think I'm in Indiana and I'm totally stupid.
I'm gonna buy you a 6-pack some evening, and
I'm onto you, Skinwalkers.
Do you know if anyone's actually done spirit box sessions at Skinwalker Ranch?
Yes,
they have.
I do know this. Yes,
okay.
And her name is April Slaughter.
She has done them there.
Yeah.
You know what? Has used different boxes.
Yes, I know because a guy in Indiana shipped them to her. So
Oh
yeah.
man, that is awesome.
Yeah, so I got like residual skinwalker juice energy sitting all around me.
Get that sage out. I don't know if you want that stuff in your house.
I'd have
Yeah,
liked
so
to have hidden in that box.
Oh,
what's that?
no.
I'd have liked to have hidden in that box and go with the.
Yeah, and you know the cool thing about it, I'm glad I was able to help April out with those experiments and the times that she's been out there. So you know, I just hope that it keeps opening doors for her down the road. So it's pretty cool. I just think it's cool that I know that some of my devices have been there. So
Is her
and who
real
knows
name
what might be coming
Slaughter?
up one. What's that?
Is that her real name, Slaughter?
Yes.
Oh
Yeah.
God,
How
that's
cool is
great.
that?
That's
Yeah.
great, right in itself.
Fantastic, right? Yeah, and that was not her maiden name, but she married into that name, and she's like, I'm not losing this one.
I'm keeping it if he even goes. I'm keeping the name. Are
Yeah.
any questions, Heather?
Yeah, there's a couple. Did you ever get any strange smells?
And investigations?
Mhm.
Yeah, I've encountered like in the basement of Bobby Mackey's Music World, like one of the most overrated, most hyped locations in the history of paranormal TV.
Yeah.
I was told that down there used to be the dressing room for maybe showgirls or something they may have had once upon a time, and you're in a musty, dirty, you know, quasi dirt floor basement and got the smell of sweet floral perfume. That
Is it
was one,
wax?
maybe. I don't
That's
know much flower
usually,
smells.
yeah. 1800s, that would have been yeah.
Yeah, so that one really caught me off guard because I mean, I wasn't expecting it, looking for it, asking for it. It just hit me like, where on earth would that smell be coming from? And that was the only thing that I could connect it to. So to me, that was really strange.
Mhm. Okay, and then did you go to SC Haunting at the Mill?
I'm not familiar with that.
Okay.
SC Haunting at the Mill. I don't know what that is.
Okay, and if you're still here, can you give us a little bit more detail on that, and we'll make sure we cover that. And then Linda, 7 or 11, meaning technician 7 or technician 11, like a helper from the other side. She just wanted clarification.
Yeah, and I read something recently that Gary Golka that actually made the PSV 11 and 7. I mean,
Yeah.
he didn't pick those numbers by coincidence. So there's been this, you know, this theory amongst ITC people for a while with the technicians and the significance of some of those numbers. And I believe like Mark Macy even had names for the individual members of the 7. I put it in my last post for the slaughter sessions for volume 2. Those names, if you scroll down, are on there. So
Okay, and
so in like, you know, techno terms,
Yeah.
if we step away from that and you were talking to like spirit mediums, they would call these technicians, they're like spirit guides. So it's the same type of concept, you know, where we just need 9-volt batteries.
Yeah.
okay. And I know Ann didn't comment, but Linda did, and she had said up South Carolina, Haunting at the Mill, hosted by
No.
Brandon Cooper.
No,
Oh,
I've never been. I don't think I've ever even been to South Carolina.
Okay, we're caught up on questions. Philip, you still got more on your list?
Oh, I could talk to him all night. I mean, I wish you could see his spirit box collection. I mean, it's like heaven. I mean, it's like ITC heaven. But yeah, I mean, I have dreams about all his spirit boxes. But
He has spirit boxes like I have fidget spinners.
yes, yeah. Have you ever gotten to a level in an ITC session where you have gotten the chanting, the choir in the background? Hearing it?
I don't. I mean, I've heard like singing and like a rhythmic type of you know, sounds, but I don't know if I'd ever really describe it as like a choir. But I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Happened one time with me and a
Mhm.
friend. I just wondered, and I've heard it of a few people that's had that experience. I was just wondering if maybe you had.
Yeah, nothing that's like really, and sometimes, if you're dealing with a box that has many effects, sometimes it's like,
Yeah,
how much am I hearing?
how
Is this
much
like
is
too much echo, too much
programmed?
reverb? I've really I've played around as far as like preferences over the years where I've gone like no effects, some effects, lots
Yeah,
of effects. And I've been probably for the past 3 years, I've been pretty obsessed with reverse speech.
yeah,
That's been my favorite for right now. And if I do add a little bit of effect at this point, I might add just like a little touch of echo or a little touch of reverb. And because I found it's like, especially like some of the real staticky radios,
yeah.
sometimes there are like some real compressed responses down in that static
And
that,
then the static, absolutely.
yeah, that you will lose with some of those effects if it's too heavy.
Mhm.
But I get it too, because those effects make it so much easier to listen to. I mean, I get the appeal, but I've gotten replies with all of them, so I don't think that one is right over the other, but it takes some adjustments and some, being able to tune your ear. But I do think we can lose some communication if you
Sure.
get too crazy with it.
Have have you ever gotten, when you've gone back and listened to the recording, a voice on top of the static, but that's on top of the sweeping?
Oh
That
yeah,
to me is fascinating because
it is. And I was talking because there's so many. I mean, people draw so many lines in the sand with our equipment in general, and especially with ITC devices are so controversial anyway. And
sure,
the ones that really impress me, like like so many people hate the sound of like a geo box,
yeah.
and I understand that,
Spring
but
reverb for anybody listening. He's
yeah,
mostly has a spring reverb that's got a twanginess to it.
a vintage like out of
Yeah,
old amp. And so, but to me it's like one of the best ways to validate a response through a device like that, or something with a lot of effects, is for the response to come through with no effects.
yeah,
So if you're listening to a geobox and you're listening to that cacophony of sound, and you get like a plain spoken reply that doesn't have that effect, I mean, try explaining that away. I mean, that just really
exactly.
can't happen, or it's definitely not radio. So I definitely do know what you're talking about.
Oh, I thought you had something, Heather.
Nope, nope. I was just replying to someone wanted to know if April's book was available on ebook, and I looked it up and got the link for her.
Oh, okay. So you
Yeah.
went to Indiana State Sanatorium. How far is that from you? September,
Um,
September last year, I think you went.
yeah, and actually, I've went since then as well.
Oh,
It's like probably an hour, hour
oh.
15 from me. Yeah, that
Can
place
you
is a
rent
neat
it?
location. What's that?
Is it a rent to hunt place?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. The guy that owns it is pretty interesting. He's retired. He's a scientist, and he developed camera technology for like special forces.
Oh,
So he looks at our cameras that we use in the paranormal, and he thinks it's pretty darn laughable. Rightly so. Rightly so.
compared to what he's
And
used to, I'm
oh
sure.
yeah, and developed. So he's not too impressed with anything that we can present as far as like paranormal evidence, and I totally get it. But he when he retired, he just loves to restore and save things, and he has this one project called like Billy Creek, where they've moved in all these old structures from like the 1800s, and they've brought them together and built like a little village.
Yeah.
And then he came across this property that had the old Indiana State Sanatorium on it. And his original idea was to knock down the buildings. And there's already like seven homes or so already on the property. And he
Whoa.
basically, and the property is beautiful. It's a
Yeah.
gorgeous property. And he wanted to turn them all into like vacation rentals, and, really make the property look pretty sharp.
Mhm.
And so he discovered all types of environmental contaminants
Issues.
from
Yeah.
the old hospital. So he couldn't tear all that down until the state of Indiana cleaned that up. Well, in the meantime, he got contacted by somebody with, I think, the Travel Channel,
Yeah.
and said, "Hey, we are interested in coming to your place and filming a ghost hunting TV show." And he's like, "There's ghost hunting TV shows, really?"
Oh my God. You're in a building like that, and that's not even the closest thing on your mind or
Yeah.
ghosts. Yeah.
And so this lady came out and walked the property with him, and she's like, "I don't think you understand what you have here." And he's like, "Well, tell me." And she's like, "People will pay you money to come here and wander these buildings looking for ghosts." He's like, "You serious?" And he's like how many times a year? Like 3 or 4?
Every weekend.
And she's like, every day but Christmas.
Uh-huh.
And she showed him, like, you know, the comparable locations, like size wise, and the prices that they kind of command. And he's like, "Do you want a job?" And he turned around and hired her.
Wow.
And so now she manages the bookings for this place, and he's using that money. His plan has changed now. He's using that money to make the building safe.
Yeah.
And some of the houses he's restoring for people to go there and actually stay on premise and have a place to shower and so forth. So you can make like a whole week or weekend at the place.
That's the way to do it.
Yeah, man, it's like a paranormal playground. I mean, honestly, and the guy still doesn't believe in any of it, but he's making money and he's saving the property and he's saving the history and he's getting to do something really cool with it. So he's all excited. Super nice guy, totally transparent. And the one thing he told me, which I think is really, really cool, even though he doesn't believe in ghosts, he came up with this.
I mean, he's
had things happen, and he's like, "The wind, that was the wind."
One of those, yeah.
He told me,
go away. Yeah.
He told me he went into every building in every room of that entire campus, introduced himself, and presented 3 words on like a whiteboard, and basically said, "If these 3 words ever get back to me, I'll believe in you." So that's kind of the gauntlet that guy threw down. So if anybody's ever in there and they get 3 words, run them to Greg. Maybe you'll crack the code.
That is great.
Yeah, so kind of cool, man. It's fun.
Oh, no question.
Nope, we're good. We're all caught up.
What did you get in that building? What kind of evidence did you get? Anything good?
I got some, I'd say, class B EVPs, and had some personal experiences. It was so big and overwhelming. You know, you ever get into a location like that where you almost feel like it's more of an urban exploration than a paranormal investigation, and especially a place that you don't have a ton of previously laid out ghost lore to go off of, like, this is the floor you got to go to and this is the room or anything like that.
So they hung themselves and the pregnant nurse.
It's kind of like new unexplored frontier. So which is kind of an exciting way to face it. We had a really fun time, and what's really weird about it and kind of unnerving, like when it was finally shut down by the state of Indiana, they literally came in and said, "Out." And by doing so, I mean, they put chains on the door. So most of the hospitals, like, the beds are still there, the linens, the offices, the desks, the files, the phones. Cups in the cafeteria. I mean, it's all there.
Energy too, all that residual energy in those items too. Even place.
Yeah, it is like you walk into like a moment frozen in time, and it's really, really wild. You know, you go to a place like Waverly Hills, that place was cleaned out years ago. You go in this place, and it's like this place. I mean, there's still like the linen closets are full.
So that kind of place I'd like.
Yeah.
Just like like people just disappeared.
The rapture happened there.
And I'm still here. What's that say? Yeah, exactly.
Well, we know.
We won't go there. But
very cool.
But you don't work with a specific team, like Paraholics team, do you? You just work with different people.
Yeah, I mean, Paraholics kind of sound like it's a team, but that was just like we explained earlier. That was
Yeah.
the whole, name that I just kind of got stuck with. But I have a group of friends that were very like-minded. That if I ever get a chance to pull them into any of my mischief, I do so, and they do the same for me. And I'm always willing to work and with other people, meet new people. So
Absolutely.
that's kind of the fun thing, not feeling like I'm completely tethered down, and they do help me a lot. I mean, so I have people that help with, a friend that helps me with research, and then I've some people that I work with. I try to invite as much as possible because I've learned a lot from them, on how to conduct really, really good EVP sessions and so forth. So, I'm not out here just dangling by myself, but I'm out here trying to learn from absolutely as many people as possible. So,
Do you find that you get more EVPs when you're not doing an EVP session, just in general
or even
investigating?
some, or even sometimes ITC sessions. It's
Yeah.
like, I've been in moments where we're all talking and somebody, tells a joke and you even get a laugh out of the ghost box.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's those moments where you're not playing good cop, bad cop, or, asking the same questions. I feel like I dubbed the term the other day, just kind of joking, but I'm kind of serious too. And you take a location like Waverly and you think about the amount of people that go through there every year and ask the same questions over and over again. And I called it spectral abuse instead of like elderly abuse.
Spectral
And
abuse.
yeah, and it's like, you kind of feel bad, and it's like, how do you do this without being exploitive, especially of in these locations where you do pay money to go to. So trying to find a thoughtful, tactful way of going about through that. When you look at it through that lens, it makes it a little bit more complicated
Yeah.
versus tell me your name, and over
How'd you
again.
die? Yeah.
Yeah. So I think they get more of a kick out of seeing, us more relaxed and not in that mode and just like hanging out and being able to chime in and be a part of the
Yeah.
experience versus, being interrogated all the time.
Mhm. Do you ever get called out, asked to do many residential investigations?
Man, I usually avoid them like the plague,
Do you? Yeah.
And when I do get involved, it's usually been due to like a favor of like another investigator.
Yeah.
So I have come in and have tried to assist, but I normally don't seek those out on my own or dangle myself out there as any type of, you know, ghost fixer.
They are a lot more work, residential than
Oh,
going out for a fun
yeah.
investigation. It is a lot more work.
And they're
And
more heartbreaking.
Yeah.
they can be. And then, when you get involved and you start seeing, some of the real tangible stuff like addictions, mental
Oh,
illnesses.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Family
So
dynamics. Yeah.
yeah, it gets
Drinking.
really, really dicey, and it starts to feel above my pay grade really, really quick. And especially with my obsession with ITC, and I can like sit in my basement and have like these controlled sessions where I'm
Yeah.
using the same box, asking the same question at the same time, and getting some of the interactions that I've captured. Yeah, I'm pretty happy, not having to call in a priest.
Yeah. Or make sure they don't have an arrest record before you go to their house.
Exactly. Yeah. But, I'm not completely closed off to it. And,
Yeah.
I'm a savvy enough guy that, I would be very careful when I do go into those types of situations. But like I said, it's usually a favor of someone that I'm trying to help someone out with. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
What's your bucket list of places you want to investigate?
Um, my bucket list. I really do love hospitals and old asylums. I'd love to go to Penhurst,
Oh,
uh, Trans Allegheny. I mean, it's the big ones, mounds.
have you been to Brushy Mountain?
No, I've not.
That's
like
our
to go
goal
there.
for next spring. That's why we're,
Well, let me
yeah,
know and I'll meet you there.
it is, it's heaven. I love that place. Oh my God, it's so fun.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
very
scary. I
cool.
mean, it's huge and it can be
Right,
scary, but I don't find it scary. I find it exhilarating.
right.
When I got grabbed on the back of the leg, it's like, oh my God, that's so cool.
Yeah, the
Yeah, I'll let you know. We're working towards it.
yeah, I don't know if you saw or not, but I recently had a new box made by Jeff Fent for me, and he managed to get a hold of some wood from Pinhurst that he put into the box.
Oh yeah.
So, yeah, super excited about getting that device.
Oh, yeah, you're living the
Yeah, I
dream with
was
the
doing.
spirit boxes.
Yeah, we were hosting an event, and someone brought one of his boxes
Oh,
to
very
the
cool.
event, and
Yeah,
that was the most active device we had the
very
entire
cool.
night. We ended
Yeah,
up having to shut it off and put it in our car because it wouldn't be quiet.
oh, fun. I had a box like that from Jeff one time that was made from wood from the oh my gosh, the name of the place that burned down in Waverly, Ohio. The Emmett House.
Oh,
A box housing made of the Emmett House wood, and that wood was so charged, it was almost like you couldn't use it at other locations because the only thing that would come through was
yeah.
stuff about the Emmett House, a place that I never even got to. And it was a feisty little box too, and it would answer questions all night long about the Emmett House. But taking on a location, you're trying to do something else with it,
Yeah.
and it wanted to fight you on it. So when I go to the Haunted America conference this year and I'm going to do my workshop, I felt like it was really important for me to try and have a build from every like major like active ITC builder out there, just because I've created a really cool network, and these guys, a lot of them, I mean, they're so cool and they've been so helpful. So I at least wanted to have a display and be able to demo all the different devices. So I've really been working hard, and I started going through my checklist, and I realized that I've been friends with Jeff Fent for a while now, and I realized I don't have a box from Jeff. So that's why he hopped on that for me and made that happen. So I'm pretty excited about it.
So tell us about this event.
The Haunted America conference is the oldest running ghost conference in the United States, and it's hosted in Alton, Illinois, which Mark Twain referred to as a miserable river town. And it sits on the Mississippi. It's very historic. It has several haunted locations, tons of ghost stories, and author Troy Taylor is the person who puts on the conference, and he hosts all kinds of like ghost tours year round. The Mineral Springs Hotel.
Oh yeah.
I mean, he's been highly involved in the community there for a very long time. He puts on the conference. The dude's written over like 100 some books. He's pretty prolific. And so anyway, he doesn't really cater towards the Paris celebrities as much. Like, you're not going to see a bunch of ghost hunters from the TV shows. He focuses on like authors and researchers and so forth.
Education, yeah.
Education, and they have a wonderful like series of speakers and after hours workshops, and then some of the locations around Alton that you can go and visit. So it's a really, really well done conference, and the guests there are excellent. So I basically have to show up this summer and not ruin the track record of being a really good conference.
You'll be a great asset. What are the dates for it?
I just had it up.
Oh,
Yeah, if you go, I think it's ghostconference.net, maybe we'll bring you to it.
June 23rd through 24th.
Yeah, so it's a great conference. It's really cool. Everybody's so nice, and there's just like a genuine quality to the presentations, and so yeah, it's really nice.
So tell us what you're going to be doing. What program will you do?
I'm doing a workshop on Saturday night, and it's basically my whole ghost versus the box workshop, where I'm going to talk about protocols for how to use a ghost box in a residential case, and I'm going to talk about just ghost boxes in general and the differences, the different sounds, effects. Do ITC apps work?
Yeah.
I'm going to kind of cover. I'm really looking at doing this workshop from someone who's curious about ITC, dipping their toes into the first time, and giving them a lot to think about. And if somebody shows up that is just a ghost box nerd like myself, they'll get a really big kick out of all the boxes. I'm going to have my own like vendor table there, and I'll have all my devices set up for the weekend. So I'll be there to talk to people all weekend. But then the workshop is Saturday night. So
Are you hiring a bodyguard to stand at your table for when you step away?
only if they're tall, have a cosmetology license, and can work nunchucks. So if you know someone that fits those, I am.
Oh man, my palms get sweaty thinking about all those boxes right there. That I could run out the door real quick.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's what I'm doing, man.
When you start a ITC session, do you have any rituals, opening rituals, closing rituals? Are there any things, protocols that you do religiously?
Something I started doing with like my cabin sessions that I've been also doing with um my slaughter sessions. I do say good evening. I give the time, and I say I welcome technicians and others who would like to see all human beings move closer to higher thoughts, words, and actions. I hope you're present this evening for my whatever I'm doing and can hear me. My first question is. That's kind of how I begin.
You get it. You get jokesters butting in and things too during these that are, that are obviously not there for the highest and best outcome. I mean, I'm sure you probably do.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And with my last series that I did with the weirdo edition, I called it. And the reason I called it the weirdo edition is because I went through and I came up with a list of like the weirdest questions I could think of. I mean, we talked about everything from Bigfoot to
Yeah.
UFOs to interdimensional beings, you name it. And because I just wanted to see over a period of a few months if I got any consistent answers or whatever.
Yeah.
And then I would conclude every session with 3 card pulls from a tarot deck. And also, because of course, I would ask them which cards that I pulled.
Yeah.
And then I would show because I wouldn't know either. And I'd pull and see which ones they may or may not get right. And then I'd also have a die that I got from actually a haunted location that I would do a die roll, and I would ask them to see, what number I was getting ready to roll. So the whole purpose of that was to take like my thoughts out of the equation as far as like the answer I expected to hear.
Yeah.
And, with me not knowing the cards and then the die roll, like, can they get a glimpse? They say time's not relevant. Well, they should know exactly what I'm going to roll. And so it got to where by the end of the cabin sessions or the weirdo edition, they were so sick of my questions. They were so sick of talking to me about Bigfoot, the Nephilim, angels, demons. They didn't want to talk about any of that crap. They were like, roll the dice. They wanted to play the game. So
oh my God, that's great.
I'm wanting to do a series where I'm just going to call it the ITC Casino, and I'm going to do nothing but play little games and just see what might come out of that. So that's my next thing I'm going to work on once I get a break from doing the slaughter sessions. So
I wish more people in the ITC world would work together on these experiments. I started that ITC collaboration 100 years ago with that thought in mind of doing group experiments. And of course, it went way off the rails, because it is work and people don't want to do work. They just want to talk to demons, because I did the code word experiment where we had a word in an envelope, and had to do sessions to see if the spirits knew what the word in the envelope was. Fun things like that. And the enlightenment experiment came up with these really deep, intense questions for the spirit world, like what happens to murderers when they die and go to the other side? Is there a spirit in jail? And it was obvious they're not allowed to answer certain things. They
Mhm.
will not answer certain questions, and they will tell you no. Like they
Yeah.
will no. It's fascinating,
Yeah.
but I wish more people would get together and do these things. There's so much to learn, working together. But
And sometimes I've wondered when you've reached like that wall and it's like they won't go any further.
yeah,
Sometimes I've wondered, are they not allowed to say? Or sometimes I wonder if they don't know themselves or what level they're at to be able to accurately answer those
answer.
questions,
Yeah,
And you kind of hate to think that you go through everything that you go through in life and then you transition to another, existence and you still
you
don't have
told
anything
no,
figured out.
no, you can't do that. No, what do you
Yeah.
mean? I can do any damn thing I want. I'm dead.
Right. So yeah,
It's
it's
society. It's
interesting.
just another society in another realm. I'm sure there's rules and regulations, but
You got
I hope
to
they're not as
punch the
strict as
time
this one.
clock and sit there and do nothing
Oh,
but watch stupid people all day.
oh my God! Deal with
Uh,
old clients that have passed and will still want their hair done.
That's a purgatory I've not considered.
Been waiting for you to get here. I need a cut. Yeah, no.
Well, you're late.
I'm going to haunt somebody. See you later. I
Yeah,
got clocks
exactly.
to set back. I can't do this. Well, I don't know
Uh,
how long Heather said we were going to keep you. So,
nobody said anything about. I had no expectation. So,
okay, because it's 4 hours. So, we want to make sure you're all right.
all right, I'm going to dig out some of my boxes. I'll be right back.
Was any questions coming up, Heather?
No, they've actually been quite quiet.
It's the beard, isn't it?
I know it's not mine. Now, when you close a ITC session, do you close it out any certain way, or you just say, "I'm done, bye bye"? Because some people equate doing ITC to using a Ouija board.
Mhm.
You're offering up an invitation to the spirit world, whomever they may be, good, bad, or
Yeah.
ugly. Do you do anything to say, go back, stay away?
Well, besides like the one instance with like the Henry Dixon guy I told you
Yeah.
about in the tunnel, and I really didn't even contact him in that tunnel through a ghost box. That was just a straight up EVP.
Yeah.
So trying to reconcile how that all worked, I really don't know. Other than that, I've never really felt like there's a reason to worry about like I've opened up another portal to hell. Here I go, and everybody's coming
Yeah.
through. But I do show some level of gratitude for anyone who may have been willing to communicate, and I try my best to get them to hear that I'm saying thank you and goodbye. And it's always funny, even during some of the snarkiest sessions I've had, for them to say bye, or as soon as you're getting ready to turn it off, they've been telling you to shut it off, and as soon as you're getting ready to, they're like, wait, just kidding, we want to keep going.
Yeah. I
And
love it when they say, wait. Yeah.
yeah, I've gotten that a lot. So I mean, I've had to learn just to kind of stand my ground with like, no, we're really going to end this now, so
You had your chance. I was
yeah,
asking.
yeah. So but I don't have any like a real formal. Sometimes I'll do the whole countdown just to give them one more opportunity for one last shout out, whatever they might have to say, and then I just shut it off.
Yeah, I'd like to do the countdown, because a lot of times they'll count with you, and that's really fun.
Or you're like 3, they're like 2, 1.
Yeah.
Like, turn it off.
Time to go. Get out. Yeah.
Yeah. I've had that before. It really is. It's so crazy. And it never ceases to amaze me how many times that you can record something super clear and something super relevant or mind-blowing, and how so many people will just be completely shut off to the possibility or the potential of that working. And I've had equipment that I've used that I've kind of learned to like dismiss, just because my experience with it did not work. But if I was with someone and they broke out, like, I joke a lot on my blog and my my videos about my dislike for the SLS cameras.
Oh,
the stick
they're
figure stuff.
always right. That's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, so I pick on those a lot,
Yeah.
but I always make the point of saying, but if I was with someone and they wanted to use it, I'd
Yeah.
still be open to the potential of maybe something being captured, because
Yeah.
since none of us can fully understand the potential of what spirits can and can't do, or what the parameters of the paranormal are,
Yeah.
I'm not going to close myself off to something amazing happening just because I think the camera is a piece of junk.
Yeah.
So, and I don't know why more people that are so anti ghost box can't even, give it a second and just really listen and try to take in that something. I mean, I can't explain what that was, but something really weird happened, and it said your mom's name and that she's ugly, or whatever. I'm just being funny, but something did come through, and it was clear and distinct, and pretty mind blowing. Even if it wasn't the ghost that you may be looking for, something happened there.
Well, I had my mother come through the spirit box before she had even passed. She had Alzheimer's and was nonverbal for several years, and we were having a bad thunderstorm several years ago, and I did a session in my dining room, and she came through and spoke to me. I mean, it was her. I mean, there was no denying about it. I mean, I freaked a little bit, and I called my sister and I said, "You've got to listen to this." And I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. It freaked her out. But it's like, that's mom. She's communicating.
That's amazing. And you're going to know your mom's voice.
Oh, yeah. And she called me by my family name, not Philip. It's like she called me by Phil, which is what she called me. And it's like, it's her. It was wild. It was wild. It was cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Kelly
there's
does.
so.
Oh, go ahead. I was going to say Kelly has a question, but you can go ahead.
Okay, there's so many potentials out there for people going through like Alzheimer's and various levels of dementia, and maybe some of the stuff that they see and experience, it's because they're able to now. I know I had some wild experiences with my grandmother when she was going through Alzheimer's, and she would describe this hole in the living room floor that children would crawl out from. And it would creep me out, man. And she would walk around the edges of this hole in the floor that she could see. And what really got me one day is her describing the haircuts and the outfits of the kids that she was seeing.
Oh, wow.
And I mean, it was so real to her that it was kind of hard for me to completely dismiss that. I mean, she was experiencing something, and whether that was some deterioration in her brain or she could really see something I couldn't. I mean, it was just, it was wild. So you never know.
You can't, because you don't know. I mean, when they're in that state, they're half in this world, half in the next, when they're get to a certain point. So there's spirits here and there. So I believe I would never dismiss anything.
Yeah.
What was the question?
It was her SB11 doesn't talk to her. Any suggestions on how to bond with it? Sounds weird, but I bonded with my dowsing rods and pendulums, so I wondered if the SB would be any similar to that.
Yeah, this might sound weird, but first off, I would not let anybody else touch your ghost box.
Yeah.
It sounds kind of like superstitious, but usually when I get a device, it takes several attempts for that device to connect, for one, to whatever they tap into to get recognized as a device they can use for communication. But then as far as like imprinting on it yourself, just kind of keep it away from other people for a while and just focus on your intentions and your frequencies of trying to connect with that device, and really learn to listen to it. But full disclosure from me, I own lots of ghost boxes, and I've never gotten a reply on my PSP 11. And so I have all these thoughts that work for me for other devices, but for some reason that's like the one box I have, and I do have it with me at all times, investigations, because I've tried, and I've had like one experience using like an Estes method type, but I wasn't the listener, and I don't know if that made a difference or not. But yeah, I've had a hard time connecting with the 11 myself, which is unfortunate because I think it's such a cool little box the way that it was put together. But don't give up on it though, you know.
Well, Kelly, like when I started in ITC years ago with my first PSB7, I was terrified. I was going to open the portals to hell in my dining room, and I'm
Same.
going to be possessed. And you know, you have to approach it thoughtfully with some education. I sat every night for 3 weeks doing sessions, just saying who I am, what I'm here for, telling what my intentions are. And after 3 weeks, it started, and they just started talking. I mean, I think they need to see who you are, why you're there, what your intentions are. Your vibrations have to connect, blah blah blah, all the spiritual stuff. And then I think they know that you're not out to do YouTube videos of dead celebrities after they die the next day. I think it makes a difference, because after 3 weeks, Albert would come through, I would turn it on, he'd say, "Hey Philip," and I'd say, "Hey," and he'd say, "I love you," and I'd say, "I love you too." You know, I mean, it was after 3 weeks of every night sitting and just saying, "I'm here if you'd like to communicate. I'm here with the highest and best intentions, blah, blah, blah." And then after they started talking, I'm Zozo and some stupid crap like that. But, just be prepared to not get freaked out, because you don't know who you're talking to. Like we said earlier, Satan's probably not going to come up and say hello to you. I'm Satan. I mean,
unless you're super special.
That's your special. But
yeah, and I think that yeah, you're right. I mean, I think it does take some time, and I've often wondered that I may have like ITC box overload, and I can't give every box the same amount of attention. I go through rotations of which are kind of my favorite for that moment or that situation. So, I'm sure that I could get my PSB 11 to talk. I mean, I know it would happen, but I probably just haven't really worked at it enough. But it's really strange though how it does seem to take some time and intention to get these things to work. I was terrified when I'll never forget the first time I turned on the PSB 7 that I had. Man, I went out like in the woods, man, like in a cemetery, and I was like, I don't know what's going to happen. Let's turn this on. And I was like you. I was a little like shaken at first.
Yeah.
And then I kind of came to the conclusion of, with a Ouija board, you're still using your body as some sort of conduit and way to like channel through. And there's always been a little bit more of a feeling of disconnection between me and the boxes, as far as like, I feel like I'm more of an observer or a wartime reporter, just wanting to kind of document the experience versus, facilitate it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Sure.
So I don't get, I'll hear crazy things, and I usually don't get too shook up.
And going back to Alzheimer's, Linda wants to know, do you think folks with Alzheimer's hang out in the astral projection world during that time?
It's possible. I mean, I think there were, they talk about kids and little kids, not having the influence and the filters in their mind, before they're told these things don't exist, and the things that they can see. And if there's one thing I noticed with Alzheimer's, when people start to go through that, it's like they do go back in time. And it's like, and so maybe there's that point where they're able to tune into something that they once had but lost, but now have regained, so
that's nice.
I think it's there.
And then SB11 from Radio Shack, she just wants confirmation.
No.
So Gary Galka, the guy who invented the Mel meter, he's the one that developed the SB7 and 11, and you can get those off of his website, which I believe is called promeasure.com. But you can also order them, I think, probably like Ghost Stop, and there's so many. Yeah, they're everywhere. Yeah, one of the few like kind of mass produced like handheld ITC devices out there. So they're you can find them. They're easy.
The SB7 is a single, I don't want to say channel, where the SB11 has 2 radios in it. And you can turn them both on and sweep them in the same direction, one in one direction, one in the other, slow one up, slow one down. You can do a lot of combinations with the 11, whereas the 7, you have one radio there. So that's the difference in the 7 and the 11.
Yeah, you're right. The 11 is it's like 2 radios in one.
Yeah.
And you can just gives you an opportunity to do different types of experiments with it.
Let me ask you your thoughts going to the app situation about EchoVox. What's your thoughts?
I have a love with most ITC apps, and I've always been one that's like, if you think that it's suspect, giving a sweeping radio any credibility as far as like an ITC response, I think we have to take even a more critical look at an ITC app without being able to fully get under the hood to see how they're made and how they're programmed. It makes it really difficult and complicated unless you're, for sure of those details, whether or not it's for pure entertainment or not. And, a lot of people have tried to dismiss EchoVox, but to me, it's kind of the OG of, ITC apps that's out there. And, there have been people who've been able to strip it away and look under the hood.
Yeah, there's
and
some videos on YouTube where they analyze it and said the mathematical combinations for that to have actual words or sentences is astronomical, which I thought was really interesting.
Yeah, very interesting. And so knowing how it was put together, how Danny programmed that, and the way that it seems to work, I feel better about a phonetic generator such as EchoVox versus an app that's loaded with just words that spit out in a word bank. So in the amount of responses that I've gotten from EchoVox, even with the microphone turned off, a lot of people think that EchoVox is listening to you, and so it's just taking bits and pieces of what you're saying and formulating the speech. But I've even shut that feature off and still get replies, which is kind of funny because the way it was always described, it's like it was meant for it to listen to itself and create this loop. And so even shutting off the loop to get full sentence intelligent replies through that thing is just maddening to me. Or when you switch it from the Hindi, so you're not even listening in English, and it's still chopping up all the word fragments and spitting them out. So I think it's a pretty incredible app, and the amount of responses that I've documented through there just it really blows my mind. And so unless somebody can show me an app that's built in a similar way that doesn't leave me with like a lot of questions, it just makes it harder for me to accept, and I know there's some good ones out there, and there's some people that have really worked hard to put out good ones. So I'm definitely open to those, but a lot of them that seem too good to be true, or probably too good to be true.
A lot of them are just pure entertainment when they've got the spooky sounds and the spooky noises and all that junk in them. That's years ago, Jonathan Garraway and I did that app for our ITC group, and it's all foreign language phonetics. That's all. There's absolutely no word. It's 12 foreign language phonetics in 3 different banks, and we had a bunch of people test it before we put it out to get rid of things that sounded like words, because some phonics and phonetics sound like a word. So we tried to pull anything out of there. And because I wanted something free for people to use that they know, because they knew me that it had no words in it. I wasn't trying to mislead anybody. So but there are some out there that are pure entertainment and that's absolute junk. But I've had good responses with EchoVox before. It's fun.
Yeah, and I've been surprised with. I went through a period of time where I was just downloading every app just to see what was going on. And and there were some that kind of surprised me, and I didn't know much about them or who really developed them. But I got caught off guard a couple times. But just for like, authenticity's sake, and to alleviate a lot of questions, I usually try to steer clear of apps as much as possible. Just makes me feel better about things.
Oh, I totally get it. Yep.
Yeah. I have a video that's due to come out this spring, where I got myself involved in more of a residential type case. The situation I try to avoid, trying to help a living person.
Yeah.
And I wound up having probably one of the wildest ITC interactions ever. And I captured it all on film, and it involved this man who had been estranged from his father, who committed suicide, and he was desperate to try to find a way to reconcile his relationship with his deceased father. And a friend of mine called me in to see if I could try to help facilitate this. I'm like, oh man, no promises on anything, but I wound up having an incredible interaction with this guy, and we were in such a rural spot. I mean, no cell phone service, nothing would work, and I wound up using EchoVox, and had the mic turned off, and the amount of information that came through and the messages were astonishing. And not only that, but he, unbeknownst to me, on the year anniversary of his father's death, he actually had some sessions with a medium trying to contact his father. This medium gave him some names of people to look for, and I knew none of this. And those names all came through the Echo Box.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
Yeah. And these were names that I almost feel that he was given to look for and listen for, to know when he was truly making a connection. Yeah. And of course, like I said, unbeknownst to me, I didn't know anything about that at the time. That was something I found out later. And then there's a segment of this audio where they start asking him about his special tattoo.
Oh.
And the weird thing about it is he did not have this tattoo at the time. And we didn't even hear the whole tattoo segment was heard upon review. And when I met up with this guy months later, I kind of showed him some of the highlights of the session, of everything pertaining to he and his father. And the tattoo segment just like popped in my head. I didn't even play it for him. And I was like, oh, by the way, do you have a special tattoo? And the color in his face just went out. And he was like,
fabulous.
Yeah, why? And so anyway, I tell him about this audio clip, and he proceeds to tell me that after he had met with me, a couple months later, he was in a car wreck with he and his daughter. And anyway, it scared him, and he wound up getting once he was able to forgive himself for the accident and kind of forgive himself over everything involving his father, he got this tattoo on his arm, which symbolized, forgiveness, and also his daughter's name, which was Olive. And he's like, can I hear that segment? So I pulled it up and listened to it, and it said his daughter's name, Olive. And I didn't even know his daughter's name to have recognized it in the audio. And so not only did it talk about his tattoo that he didn't have, it listed his daughter's name that the tattoo represented. And it was just like, you talk about space and time not being consequential on the other side. We were all astonished. That was the big jaw drop of the whole thing. So I'm really excited. It's going to be a companion piece to a podcast that's coming out that really is going to tell the whole story. And then my video will be online with a post on my blog for people to check out. So I'm really excited for people to hear it, see it, and watch it.
I can't wait for that. Yeah,
it is gut wrenching. So.
And I mean, that just is mind blowing when you think about it. And that's what keeps us wanting to do it and do it more. I mean, those kind of moments like that. It's just it's like the treasure hunting and finding the pot of gold.
Yeah. Or just the validation of, wow, this is real.
It is. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, it's getting late. Any other questions? I don't want to
Nope,
keep you.
we're good.
I know you got to get up and go to work tomorrow. So,
I do.
what time do you start work?
Between like 10 and 11.
Yeah. That's,
Yeah. But then you're there later in the evenings, and I got to try to get my old butt up in the morning to try to like exercise and take some care of myself. So
yeah, you're doing good. I get up and go to the coffee pot and then go to the sofa for an hour, and then
hey, I have mornings like that too.
Yeah, I have quite a lot of mornings like that. Yeah, I'm allergic to exercise, unfortunately.
Well, you got to trick yourself into doing it. So you got to find a way of moving your body that you don't realize that you're actually getting benefit from. So, yeah.
Refrigerator opening. Yeah.
There's that. And there's the 12-ounce curls, the
Yeah.
or better yet, hula hoop while you cut hair. That's going to be good for business too.
Yeah, that could create some really interesting things with that. Yeah. All right, Heather, you want to wrap us up?
Yep, yeah. And they can find you at Paraholics.com. I'm assuming since that's what's under your name. Just make sure I give them the right.
You got it.
And I'll make sure I need to remember to start posting things, but I'll get that posted on our Facebook page as well. You guys can follow us on Facebook at Ghost Education 101, where you can catch our latest lives, and all of our videos are there. And then I am also still in the process of catching up, but they are also on YouTube. All the newer ones are on YouTube, and some of the older ones will be there shortly. In 2 weeks, we return on April 26th at 9 p.m. Eastern with a presentation on York Ghost Merchants by the Haunted Librarian. She will be joining us again for one of her presentations and share her knowledge. I always enjoy, and I learn something new every time she comes on the show.
Great researcher with these stories. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And again, thank you, Matthew, for joining us. It was great to finally meet you face to face.
Yeah, thank you. It was a lot of fun, guys. I
you.
enjoyed it quite a bit. So
Okay.
I'll see you around, Philip.
Yep. And
love
everyone,
love you a lot.
I love you, pal. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you for joining us all. You guys all have a great night.
Good night.